everybody. I'm Georgina Hopkinson. Before I get started, because I have adopted this Alice in Wonderland theme, and you may not have watched it as recently or as frequently as I have, I'm just going to play the opening scene just to set the atmosphere for you guys, to remind you of what it's like. And now ignore this, because I didn't download the video, so it's not a smooth transition. So I quite like that opening scene, because I think that quite often as an Agile coach, you can feel like Alice chasing after the rabbit. So the rabbit, if you imagine the rabbit as someone in a team or a team, they're always late to deliver something, late to ship something off into production. And as an Agile coach, you're there constantly trying to fight to help them to continuously improve. And a lot of teams fail to recognize the importance of taking that time and stopping and talking to you and finding out how they can improve. And hopefully, the theme of Alice in Wonderland will become clear throughout the talk. And this idea that quite often we all live in different realities. So Alice talks about how if it was her reality, everything would be nonsense. And I think that quite often when we're talking to each other, we can feel like we're all living in different realities. And so hopefully I will make it really clear exactly why I think that's a really important thing to be made aware of. So as I said, I'm Georgina Hopkinson, and I will be taking you through my journey as an Agile coach through the looking glass. I think that, so this quote is from Caleb Dean, and it's from his personal leadership canvas. But I think it's a beautifully way of putting the importance of understanding what is before you can start to support teams as an Agile coach, as a Scrum Master, as a leader, or someone in a team who just wants to support a team to improve. In order to do that, you must first start by understanding what their current reality is. So Caleb says, in order to truly leverage change, design what can be, and implement what will be, we must understand what is. So I think that's the starting point of any coaching interaction, any Agile coaching interaction, or as a Scrum Master, or just any interaction where you're trying to help somebody else, and you're trying to make their work lives easier, healthier, happier. You must first focus on understanding what reality is like for them right now. Which is why I think this is the most important skill of an Agile coach, empathy. So empathy talks about how it's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. However, in order to understand and share the feelings of another, you must first of all listen to them and have a go at stepping into their shoes. So I want to try and exercise. In fact, can I first of all start off? I forgot to ask. I just want to find out sort of who's in the room. So can you raise your hand if you're an Agile coach? Okay. Can you raise your hand if you're a Scrum Master? Can you raise your hand if you've been doing it for more than a year? And can you raise your hand if you're a leader or someone in a team who wants to sort of implement coaching practices? Cool, great. So got a massive variety of people in the room. So I'm hoping that this is useful for all of you, because this is basically what I think is the most important thing. And I think that it's a skill that you can use across the business with lots of different types of teams. So it's about basically, ultimately, I just want to bring you all back to the basic of what is so important when you're trying to support a team. And so I want to try and exercise. So if 6 people could come to the front, 3 people who sway more towards, so we're going to have a little bit of a debate. And I'm hoping it doesn't get too heated because it is sweet or savory. So I want 3 people who are feeling comfortable, who lean more towards sweet, and I will pull people up. Anyone feel comfortable? Thank you. I need 6 people. Come on, it's not going to be hard. I promise.
Do we get the sweets at the end?
You can help yourself. Yeah.
Can I go savory?
So I need 6. Come on.
Savory. Thank you.
6 people. Yeah, sweet or savory? Yeah. Savory. We've got 1 savory. And then 2 more sweets. Sweet? Anyone else? 1 more person? Thank you, Ewan. Okay. So I want you to, I can't remember if you, I don't know if any of you ever did this in sports day, so I want you to like queue up like this, facing this way, one behind the other, and you 3 do the same. So you're going to explain. You might want to use these questions on the card in front of you. You don't have to. You might not need the card for now because you already feel pretty passionate that what you've chosen is the best thing. So you're on the sweet, that's worked out well. Okay. So you are going to say why you think sweet is the most important thing. And you don't need to say anything negative about savory. It's just, why is sweet so great? And you might want to use those questions to help you. And then you will have the opportunity to say why savory is so great. So, and you might want to, again, you might want to use those questions to help you. Okay? So first of all, yeah, so you 2 can go first.
I need to say why it's sweet.
Why is sweet, yeah, why is sweet so great?
Sweets are awesome because they satisfy your cravings every time you want
Per?
Savory is better because it allows you to eat more without feeling sick.
Perfect. So now swap cards. So, oh, sorry. So swap cards, and then go to the back of the opposite queue. Yeah.
Yeah, can do. Savoury is better because it doesn't block the teeth.
Sweets are better if you get kids to do stuff with them.
Sorry.
So sweets are obviously better because they give you energy. There's nothing like feeling down, you get the buzz of sugar hit.
Savory is the best snack in the world because in this hot weather, it's easily transportable and it doesn't melt.
Brilliant. So now you're on the opposite side to what you started with, and it's your opportunity to explore why this actually could be better. So for the people who were initially on sweet, why could savory be better? And you might need these questions now to help you to think of some ideas. Is that
Sweets are better because they give you a sugar rush to help you in daily standards.
Well, savoury is a lot better because you can just have them at any time of a meal. So when you want them for lunch or dinner, you can just have a little bit of lunch.
awesome? Thank you. So feel free to give me a card. Oh,
Take sweets.
thanks. Yeah.
Sweets are better. They're just really good and easy to put in the fridge.
Well, if I put savories in my lunchbox instead of sweets, I might lose some weight.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Sweets just give you a massive sugar rush.
But with savoury, you need salt in your system, and savoury is a good way of kind of getting that salt into your system. Healthier overall.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thanks so much. Although obviously that was a very light-hearted debate, it gives you the opportunity to sort of see what an exercise might be like if you want to have a step into someone else's shoes. So you could use this in any team. So if you're trying to decide what kind of language to use, if you're coding, you might, face each other as and say what you think is the most important thing. But then also make sure that both sides are having the opportunity to say why the opposing idea could be better. Quite often, all we do is say why we think our idea is better, and we fight for our idea. But we don't take the opportunity to try and have a think and try and explore why this other thing could be better. So I think this is a good exercise to do with your teams, but also it highlights the fact that when you watch those the 2 teams come up just then, you felt like when they said what they thought was better initially, you were kind of on board with them, you felt like they really believed in it. But then they had the opportunity to go on the other side, and they were still able to explore. So a lot of teams kind of avoid doing this because they assume that they won't necessarily be able to think of positive things on the other side. But until you step into someone else's shoes and imagine why their idea might be better, it's very hard for you to have an open discussion and come up with an agreement about what is the best route to go. So, although, I don't know how to fix that. Oh, it's back, okay. So although it's really important to step into someone else's shoes and explore, what's really important here is that you're listening to those opposing ideas. And you're taking time to hear exactly what those other people are saying. And quite often, you hear a lot of Agile coaches saying this. It would be so nice if something made sense for change. I love this quote, because a lot of Agile coaches say, well, it just makes sense, doesn't it? Like the Agile values and principles, they just make sense. However, when you're talking to someone to whom it doesn't make sense, they're living in a very different reality to you. So it's important that you step into their reality in order to see what makes sense to them first, before you can truly have a discussion about what reality is for you, and to try and help them to see it from your side. If you're not willing to see it from their side, then it's going to be pretty hard for them to have willingness to sort of step into your shoes as well. And there's a couple of mindsets that I think are really important when you're having these discussions and you're listening. So the first one is genuine curiosity. So when you're talking to someone and you're listening to what they're having to say, it's really important that you listen with genuine curiosity and you ask questions that are truly open. So you're not trying to lead them in any way. You're not trying to direct them in any way. You try and leave your ideas and your objectives at the door, and you listen to them with genuine curiosity as to what it is that they believe and what reality is like for them. And another thing, so Alice says, sometimes I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. So as well as listening with genuine curiosity, it's really important that when you're talking with someone, you also have a genuine belief that whatever they believe is possible. That doesn't mean that you have to be continuously saying, yes, that's right, you can do that, yeah, that's great. It's about sort of opening your mind and changing your mindset to believing that when you're having a conversation with someone, and as soon as you sort of change that subconscious awareness and you change your sort of, it will change your subconscious and it will change the way that you communicate with them, because you'll be genuinely believing that what they think can be true. And it will be much easier for them because it will be obvious, especially I think for leaders or Agile coaches or Scrum Masters. Quite often you sort of say, well, I want to teach my teams about going in this specific direction, or I want to try to direct people to go in this way, or I want them to use this different process. And quite often if you are already having an idea about what you want them to do, you'll remove yourself from believing that what they think is possible is truly possible. So it's basically just about trying to step out of your reality and seeing their reality for what it truly is. And I've had a few questions from people who are new to being Scrum Masters or new to being Agile coaches about how can teams listen to an Agile coach talking without feeling as though they're being preached at. I don't know, is anyone familiar with that? Does anyone feel like, quite often teams feel like you're preaching at them? So this is a technique that I use with a lot of teams. And I basically say to them, so I'm not suggesting that you would always use this technique. However, if you feel like teams are really uncomfortable with Agile, maybe they've had a negative experience with Agile coaching before, or they just don't really want someone coming in and trying to change them, it can be a good opportunity to basically, what I say to teams is, what do you think is most important? What skills do you think are most important to creating a high-performing team? And they can say whatever they want. It could be, okay, collaboration, communication, transparency. Those might be things that I think are really important. They might say things like having a flat structure or absolutely anything. I'd then put those on cards, allow them to shuffle them, to prioritize them, And then I'd say to the team, okay, so starting with this top thing that you think is the most important thing, where are you right now? So just like take a fist of 5, 1 being, we're terrible at this. We definitely need to make loads of improvements. And 5 being, we're absolutely fantastic. There's nothing we need to change. And I take the average score of the room. I also take the lowest score and the highest score. I take the average because obviously it allows you to get a sense of where the team feel they're at. And they can then say, okay, so what do we need to do? If we're a 3 now, what do we need to do to become a 5? Or, and as well as that, having the lowest and the highest allows you to see how aligned the team are in where they feel they're at right now. So I think, so basically it's just a team self-assessment. So ask the teams, what's important to you? Ask them to assess themselves and ask them to decide how they want to work in order to improve these specific areas. And once you've done that, so once you've decided as a team what's most important and what skills you need to be high performing, you also really need this thing. So this is about what path you're going to take. So what direction do you need to be heading in? So you might have seen this quote before used in Agile discussions. So the Cheshire Cat says, if you don't know where you want to go, then it doesn't matter which path you take. So you need to make sure, first of all, of course, you're working with the teams and you're finding out what's important to them. And you're listening to the teams and you're empathizing with what's important to them. But as an Agile coach or someone within the business who wants to help your team to improve, you also need to be listening to the business, listening to leadership, listening to other teams to find out what's important and what do they need to get to, where do they need to get to. So the teams have a really clear direction. So there's 2 things that I think are really important here. Finding out what's important to the team and how they want to improve, and being really, really clear about where they need to get to. So what are they going to do in order to get to this place? And only then, once you've got those 2 things really, really clear with the team, can you then focus on speed. It takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. So a lot of teams kind of initially just want to straight away focus on this speed. They want to start increasing the speed of delivery. They want to be shipping to customers faster. And that's often when they start to bring an Agile coach into the team or a Scrum Master into the team. But until you know exactly where you want to go, and you've decided how you're going to work together as a team in order to get there, I think that speed is the last thing then that you would focus on with a team. So you need to make sure the team are clear on their direction and they're clear on how they're going to get there. And then you can start thinking about, okay, so how much faster can we go? How can we improve? But the reason why I'm talking about this is just because I know that a lot of people straight away think this is the thing that teams find most important. But for me, it's about listening to the teams, finding out what's important to the business, finding out what's important to them, and helping them to develop in those ways. And unfortunately, for Agile coaches, sometimes things change so quickly. So it's no use going back to yesterday. I was a different person then. People change. Teams change. Teams are constantly learning and developing and just finding new ways of working, and their priorities are changing. So it's really, really important that you're then going back to those teams and listening to them again, finding out what's important now. What do you need to start working on now? All of those things that you spoke to them about initially and they've run experiments on, how have they learned from those and how are they moving forward? And the last thing that I want to focus on is you as Agile coaches or Scrum Masters or people who are trying to develop your teams. Quite often it can feel like you're being pulled in lots of different directions and you feel like you're constantly trying to support lots of different areas. You're always busy. And you yourself can often feel like you're being manipulated and changed, and not necessarily always in a negative way, but you're working with amazing people all the time. So you quite often feel like your ideas change, and it can be really hard to then take a step back and think, is this exactly what I think I should do, or is this what is my biggest priority right now? So I wanted to quickly do a little exercise with you on values. So before I was an Agile coach, I was a volunteer counsellor for Childline, and I feel really lucky looking back at the training. Even though it was quite emotionally exhausting, we had a lot of discussions and a lot of exploring about how we feel about different things. And I think that if I hadn't had that training, I would have never actually explored what my values really are. And quite often people say to you, so what are your values? And it's really hard to, you kind of say words, but you're not really sure if they've come from your heart, if they're really true to you. So I want you to now, you should have an index card and some pens in front of you. If not, there's some more pens here and cards here if you want to grab anything. So on your index card, I want you to write down one thing that's happened to you at work that you felt genuine gratitude for. One thing that's happened in the workplace that you really valued and you really appreciated. It can be something tiny, it can be something really small, like someone bringing you a cup of coffee, or it can be something far bigger, like you feel as though you're really listened to by leadership, or whatever it is that's happened that you can recall, that you felt genuine gratitude for. Once you're finished, I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to ask that person, you can share with each other if you feel comfortable. If not, then you can just ask each other the question, you can just write down the answer, but if you feel comfortable, it might be worth having that conversation. So share with the person, so this is the experience I had. And I want your partner to then ask, why is that so important to you? And keep asking, so why is that important to you? Why is that important to you? Until you get to the root value of whatever it is that you've got written down. Is that clear? Yeah, cool. How is everybody getting on? Does anyone feel comfortable sharing anything from the exercise? Yeah? Oh, cool.
And the thing that was important to Tanya at the moment was using no estimates with her teams. So I asked the question, so why is that important to you? And it ultimately came down to making people who are doing the work happier. And that is what Tanya believes is one of the fundamental things that we need in life.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Does anyone else feel comfortable sharing? Spoken with a few of you. You've got really good examples, but if you don't feel comfortable, that's...
I said I felt like I was Alice.
Uh-huh.
When you put up the slide that said,
Yeah.
I sometimes wake up in the morning with 6 crazy ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
With no idea how to implement them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I look to be in this.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Does anyone else?
Yeah, one of my sort of examples when somebody on my team a couple of weeks ago actually said, you know what, I'll write 10 that's all retrospective, if you like. Just calm us down just a little bit. That's really important.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a sort of expectation sometimes that we're going to roll up with all this nice stuff, and it's just not really good. So we say, wow, that's really cool, I'll do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely.
So mine started off with being trusted by my manager when I first started in the role, and actually I was thinking that the value was about trust, but actually once we kind of talked about it and drilled down, I realised that actually I wanted to be trusted because I'm all about doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And so I realised that possibly the value is about doing the right thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. No, it's a great example. It's just, and sometimes it is just about, like we were talking in other groups, just about breaking it down and going down into those layers. And sorry, what was your name? Rich. Rich was talking about an exercise where you have all of the values written down on cards and you choose the ones that you feel you most connect with. But I think that's a good example of how actually if you might choose a card that said trust because you think that's probably it. Whereas if you have an example, then you know that it's something that's actually true to you. So I find the exercise, it gets to the heart of what is actually important to you, as opposed to, well, I guess it would be family and friends, and you know, because you kind of just say the obvious ones. Whereas I think if you think of an example first, you can grasp something that means something to you. Cool, thank you. Would you like to share?
Mine was helping others know their self-worth, and that self-worth was through eventually the company. But it
Yeah.
maybe after drilling into it more about personal pride for them. So
Yeah.
for me, it's maybe helping others achieve it too when they don't think they can. So that kind of was what brought that up.
Cool. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and I think, so we were also so in Richard's group, we were also talking about the importance of being able to build trust within teams. And I can't think who the book is by, but he talks about how there's sort of 4 elements to building trust. And the first element are the values. So the values are like the roots to the tree. So I think hopefully you can go away and you can do this exercise yourself, so you can come up with 2 or 3 values that truly mean something to you. And it will help you to, if you feel comfortable making those transparent with your teams and using those as a way to help build trust with the people you're working with. I often give myself very good advice, but I very seldom follow it. I think a lot of people probably relate to this. But I find that when you have your values written down, it's so much easier to give yourself advice. So, for example, I might say that one of my values is trust. So if I'm trying to think about what I need to do next, it's much easier for me to sort of say, well, does this decision align with my values? And if so, then it's much easier for me to decide which path to take. So it's another way of just being able to give yourself advice and make sure you're doing things which align with your values. There's research that shows that the biggest regrets that you have in life are the things that go against your values. So it's not necessarily the things that have upset people or caused offense, but it's the things that go against what truly matters to you. So another great reason why it's worth going away and exploring what your values really are and just taking that time out. I know that you're obviously probably really busy people, so it's sometimes hard to think, I'm going to take an hour or 2 hours just to go off myself and think about these things. But it can help you in so many aspects of your work and your home life as well. So I would recommend giving it a go. And hopefully, once you've sort of adopted this skill of empathy as top of your priority list, and you've started listening to your teams, as opposed to feeling like going into a team or a new company is a daunting and scary task, it can feel more like a wonderland of opportunities to learn from different people and work with different people and just allow yourself to see lots of different realities. And so this talk was kind of ultimately about bringing you guys, so I know you all have it sounds like you've all got a lot of great experience. So ultimately I was hoping to sort of give you a shortcut into what I think are the most important things. But yeah, so hopefully you found it useful, even though you're incredibly experienced people already. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
I had a question, going back to the exercises you did earlier in the debate. Obviously, you don't normally do it about sweet or savoury.
I don't know.
So when you do the switch over, so you'll have people who are very passionate about it one side,
Yeah.
others who are very passionate about that, and then they switch. You give them time before they come up with their argument for something that they're not passionate about to think about it, versus what you did from this exercise where they had to just go straight into it.
Yeah, so yes, so because this was quite a quick exercise to do with a big group of people, I didn't give that time. But yeah, absolutely, I would recommend giving a little bit of time for them to reflect and think about what the positive points could be about it. Or maybe even, obviously, if you're setting up a meeting to do this exercise, it might be worth just letting everybody know sort of what you're going to be doing during the exercise so people have an opportunity to prepare and think about it.
I think they do really release sweet savoury exercise quickly first.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? That's fine. I'll hang around for a bit if anyone does have any questions or wants to chat about anything, but that's all.